This is Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Northeast Streaming Sports at Night. It's your girl, Sonja Pearson, once again with another edition of At Night News. Super excited to know that we have made it to the weekend, and can you believe it? I cannot believe it. There is no NFL this weekend. However, I do have a special guest for you. Joining me is SportsSkope's own producer, creator, and host, none other than Mr. Robert Butler.
Hi, hey, Sonja. Yeah, I like the background. Looks good, my friend. Looks good.
Good. So glad you could join us. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And hello, everyone coming on. Good evening. Happy Friday.
Yeah. Well, Thursday, close enough, right?
Yeah. We're. I'm already thinking Friday. Can you believe that? Today is Thursday, y'all. I'm sorry.
Everybody's working towards the weekend.
Let me tell you, forgive me, audience. Thank you for getting me back on point, Robert. It has been such a long week. I've already just moved on past Thursday, and it's Friday in my head. So thanks for telling me that, because I probably would not have shown up for my regular 9 to 5 tomorrow until in the morning. So happy Thursday.
I've had quite a few this year too. So yeah, I'm a live streamer, podcast. I hate to use the word podcast because there's so many people that's got them. Yeah. And quite frankly, between me, you, and your audience, they're garbage, and I don't want to be associated with that. But when you invite people who aren't in our field of what we do, this new medium per se, it's fairly new. They use the term podcast, but I say, you know what? Yep, that's it. I mean, I'm not going to argue it. After the show, it turns into a podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and
that's right.
No, I have a background in journalism, modern communication. Graduated in 2006 and went into that field. Actually, I took a job as a newspaper reporter. This was right when the online thing was starting to get started out in Laughlin, Nevada. Worked out about 6 weeks out of Laughlin, Nevada for a paper. And, that just didn't work out. Long story behind that, really didn't like the immediate boss I was working with. Got away from journalism and everything for quite a few years. Chased real estate. I was a realtor and everything. Starting a security company. I was doing a lot of stuff, really chasing money. And 2017, I decided just to start a live stream. That shows SportsSkope on the Periscope app in May of 2017. So that's coming up on 7 years practically. Doing it really one day a week. Doing it one, and I think you told me you started around that time too, right?
I did, August of 2017.
Yeah. So I started in May, and I was doing one night a week, and then on the Periscope app, and then they did away with that. Then I got on Facebook and started doing Facebook Live, and a few years later, I think probably 2020, I want to say 2019, I met Linda, and they introduced me the StreamYard type of thing. So yeah, and I'm a medical carrier drive during the day, but essentially, yeah, that's how I got started into this, and really enjoy it. Applied for some radio jobs a few years ago, but I started doing it. This will be my second year going 5 days a week in September, the day after Labor Day. So before that, I applied for radio gigs, didn't get any contact back. But now I do an hour show, about 55 minutes to an hour show every night. If you do the best of any 3 hour talk show, political show, sports talk show, radio, whatnot. It's about 55 minutes. A lot of it's repetitive. People don't know that. That's not in the business, but it's just repetitive. So I'm qualified to do a 3-hour show, but it's not easy, my friend. Hey, Linda. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
Linda, producer Linda and Mac over at Northeast Streaming Sports. You see the tickler down there. Download the Roku app so you can download Northeast Streaming Sports when you look for them. And they have 24/7 sports without the cost of cable. Hello, Linda. And she said, you got the sharp dress, man. I know. I went and got my blazer just for that purpose, Linda, because I was like,
Yeah,
one time I
it
wear a
looked
t-shirt.
good.
I got Robert on here and she says we miss you, and we definitely do miss you on the Sunday morning sports show, because that's how I got connected with you, thanks to Mac and that crew. So she said you were one of their originals. And Annette Roberts,
I'm
hello,
the OG.
joining us tonight. He is. So let's get into a little bit of sports tonight, Roberts. I mean, you have such a plethora of knowledge across all platforms, but we have to address, unfortunately, what's still going on from the Kansas City Chiefs and their celebration that turned awry with DJ Lisa Lopez Galvin, who was killed, a DJ out in Kansas City. 21 others wounded, including 11 or 12 children. 7 of those had life-threatening injuries. Just a sad day. Looks like the NFL came out, made a statement today, as did the Kansas City Chiefs, including the governor herself was at that parade. And this, in fact, happened at the conclusion of the parade. They said the team, as well as all the trainers and assistant coaches and whatnot, were already on buses on their way back to Arrowhead when this tragedy occurred. 3 supposed suspected gunmen are in custody right now. Your thoughts on that, if there are any?
Yeah. You know, I was wondering why they didn't release the names. And now this morning I found out that 2 were juveniles. And from what I'm reading from TMZ, you know how they're always on top of this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And even with the NFL reporters are saying that it wasn't a mass shooter. It wasn't a terroristic type of shooting. It was a shooting where people were going back and forth over dispute and a crossfire. I mean, that is a heck of a crossfire. Like a cross the street type of ordeal. And of course, one guy, he tackled one of and the police were there. They did a good job. That could have been a lot worse when you've got that many people. I was talking about yesterday on my show. These parades can be huge. I mean, I went to the one for the Titans in 2000. They didn't even win the Super Bowl. They got to the Super Bowl in 99 and 2000. Mm-hmm. And but you see a crossfire going across the street like that. I'm surprised it wasn't worse. And unfortunately, like you said, one person died. It's really a tragedy, and I'm glad the people got caught, and I hope that they're not too light on these gentlemen. That woman, I don't know if she had, if she didn't have kids, she's got relatives. She
has 2 children. She has 2
even
children,
worse, right?
Mm-hmm. And she was a beloved DJ, a legend in that area. Sway in the Morning, they were talking about it on XFM radio today, that she was known throughout the country. And was there to actually DJ the event. So she wasn't even there in a non-working capacity. But, you know, you kind of like at this point, you don't want to mix the political aspect from it, but you have to think about gun control. You have to think about these assault rifles that are in the circulation amongst everybody. And it's almost like thoughts and prayers is just like the weak result of everything, because we always thoughts and prayers. Even enacting tougher gun laws, you have to deal with the NRA and things like that. It's still not going to be enough, in my opinion, to curtail what happens, because if someone wants to get this weapon, legal or not, they're going to get it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got, I read a stat. You got more guns than people in America. So that's, and I want people, there's this may be a crime thing. It sounds like a crime issue. That's probably one of the reasons why it didn't get it. They kind of, have you noticed the media's kind of they're doing this number. They're slapping their hands up, and I'm thinking, okay, now I'll treat every issue the same. I mean, hey, if it's a crime issue, it's a crime issue. If you got the gun issue, that's that's an issue too. We'll see what kind of background these guys had. As
I
far
don't
as
think
these
it was
mass
much
shootings.
with them being juveniles.
That's wild, ain't it?
Yeah, and in my mind, it's going to be interesting to see tomorrow night. My guest will be Kansas City Chief or Die, their actual tribe leader. He is the founder of
wow,
that
okay.
organization. He was on last week, and we had about 400 views. A lot of people were tuning in. I had already scheduled him to come on tomorrow night to talk about, congratulations with winning the Super Bowl. But now, of course, I'll have to address this. And in fact, when this occurred, before it even was on the news, he was already on live because he was there when it happened. So it's going to be big tomorrow night at 7. Everyone, please join me as I welcome Fidel back to my show. But we definitely, are looking at that. It looked like it was a fight that literally, like you said, went wild. I'm wondering if it was gang involved. It's just one of
that's
these
the next
things,
question. Yeah.
and you don't want to presuppose. But I'll be able to get a little more information on tomorrow. I'm going to have to literally prep him before the show because I'm sure it's going to be super sensitive, and I don't want to be insensitive to the emotional aspect of being there and actually seeing that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look at this. They've got what, 3 Super Bowl championships in 6 years of the starter. I mean, that is 50% like
Right.
that. I was just talking to my dad about even with the AFC Championship game appearances since Mahomes' first year starting. I mean, think about the local economy. You hate to have this overshadow what the Chiefs have done for the city of Kansas City.
Exactly.
Think about those sports bars,
right?
Those hotels. I mean, this is really a prominent time in the city of Kansas City right now for sport. I mean, do you think about the local economy the Chiefs are bringing them right now, going this late in the season? I mean, it's really got to be not just from a financial standpoint, but just from a morale standpoint of the city right now. Just having that kind of success with the market right in the middle of the country like that, where you can't say it's rigged. It's always the big markets, right? I mean, it's really it's a great story of the NFL. They hate to see this overshadow this particular event, and I'm glad there wasn't more, fatalities or anything like that. And I'm so glad that they did get arrested, and people, they're still not looking for the people involved, those suspects involved,
Yeah, so we definitely have to revisit that. It's definitely something that's thought provoking because football brings us all together.
It is,
the NFL
yes.
is one of the popular sports, and even though people were across the board rooting for the 49ers, some rooting for the Chiefs, it just is a downer, a negative cloud because this will forever go down in history now. Not that they won back to back, but the bigger story will be, but look at what happened in their celebration. So, we're going to move along from that.
Yeah,
that
I hear you.
Extremely emotional, but I did want to address that with you.
Oh,
and
yeah. I talked about
Robert,
it yesterday. Yeah.
You're very informed. And so we're gonna keep it moving. All right. So who is your favorite NFL team? I don't think we've ever talked about it. Are the Titans your team?
Yeah, well, I was born here in Nashville. We didn't have a team in the early. I was born in 81. We didn't have a team here till about 97. They played in Memphis. So we officially got a team with the team name, the stadium, the new attitude, everything in 1999. So yeah, I was a Cowboys fan before that because they were the only thing on TV in the mid 90s, here in Nashville. You're a Falcons and the Cowboys. Of course, you was in Charlotte back in them days.
I live in Atlanta, but it's Panthers. They came
all
around
the way
same time that your team did right before.
That is true. You just got the Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars at the same time, just before Houston moved to Tennessee, right?
Yeah, people mix them up all the time. Right when the Oilers moved from Houston to become all of that was like the end of the 90s, mid 90s to the end of the 90s. I was in college during that time.
What year did Charlotte actually have a team? I thought it was like 94, 95. I thought it was before.
So they probably started the talks in 94, but it was 96,
Okay.
95, that time era, when Jerry Richardson started the organization. And so it's been a lot, but I gotta delve in because I do have a lot of Cowboys viewers a lot. You used to be a Cowboys fan. Do you still pull for them? Do you still keep up with the news?
No. You know what? A lot of my friends that live here, they never left the Cowboys. They never left the Cowboys. Because listen, when Jim's teams were coming up, Jim Jeffcoat, who's on Northeast Streaming, my stepmom, my dad just married her in 89. And, you know, I would stay with them. And then when I would miss my friends, I'd move back to my mom's, right? So I was one of them. I'd play ball. Then I'd get irritated with my stepdad. I'd move back with my dad. And I'd do that number. But she lived in Texas for a long time. Really liked Jimmy Johnson. I like Jimmy Johnson. My dad's a huge football fan, no matter what. And we started just, like Edmund Smith, Michael Irvin, that great. And of course, it always helps when you're winning, right? They just started to get their footing in 91, Super Bowl appearance in 92, 93, back, winning Super Bowls. Really annoyed. And you know what? I did like the Niners before that, but I was really young, but I didn't like the way, I didn't understand free agency and business decisions, the way they did Montana, where he wound up going to Kansas City. So I was like, you know what? My stepmom, she's lived in Dallas for a long time. I like this Cowboy team. I like the coach. He's very charismatic guy. How about them Cowboys and all that? So had the pullover jacket. Remember, starter jackets were huge back in them days.
Right.
You could get killed over a starter jacket in my own neighborhood.
The Raiders had theirs first, if I remember correctly. Everybody had the Raiders jackets. I mean, all the guys that I went to school with and in high school had those black and silver Raiders jackets. I don't know if it was because that was the whole NWA era or what, but everybody I knew had those jackets. And you were super cool if whoever you dated, they let you wear their jacket. It was just one thing that, kind of growing up in the 90s and the high school and college time was definitely the time. And we see where the Raiders are now. They're in Vegas. I want to talk to you about that because we just had the first Super Bowl in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Entertainment capital of the world. Aside from, we always had that damper. When the Raiders first came, we had that whole Henry Ruggs situation.
Yes.
With that young lady and her dog. Very, very sad.
Oh, that was horrible, wasn't it?
Has thrown his entire life away. And of course, she lost her life, and so did her dog. But the Raiders have persevered and gotten through that. And now they're talking about bringing the Oakland Athletics to the Vegas Strip. In fact, Tropicana, which is one of the oldest new Vegas, not old Vegas, hotels, you cannot even rent some of the rooms out anymore or should I say reserved, because they're already starting construction on demolishing that entire hotel to put the Athletics right there on the Strip. So they're going to be like a couple blocks down from Allegiant, which is, behind Mandalay Bay, but it's still going to be right in that walking area. If you've ever visited Vegas, like I have, I've been quite a few times. It's all going to be there, and it's just going to make the place more spectacular. The venue looked amazing. Everything's there, but they do have to, be advised of some of the laws. There are some of the non-restrictions that players are going to have to be kind of, a little more restrictive with coming up until those Super Bowls and things like that. But what are your thoughts? It looks like all of the Oakland teams are now relocating to Las Vegas. This now being with the baseball team. And they've talked about that MLB move for at least 5 or 6 years. And now it's coming to fruition. They're supposed to be wrapping up next year with construction, or starting construction, I should say.
I tell you what, I think it's pretty cool for Vegas. Like I said, the first job I got out of college back in October of 2006, I got a job in Laughlin, Nevada. It's about 80 miles south of Vegas. Hung out in Vegas. I lived there 6 weeks. I lived too long. But I've been to Vegas a few times. Been to Vegas this time of year. And a lot of people that hadn't been to Vegas prior to this that went to the Super Bowl. I was reading online that they were kind of at all because it was so cold there. And I said, yeah, it still gets cold there, almost like Nashville in the wintertime. So it's not just because it's 150 in the summer, it's still pretty cool there in the wintertime. It's a good distraction from all the casinos. I like the way the city's run. I've had some good friends from Vegas. If I had a job offer in Vegas doing radio, I would probably move there. It's more to it than just a bunch of casinos. It's affordable to live there. And here's something that that general managers, coaches, and executives in all leagues right now are taking a deep sign of breath, that nobody got in trouble in Vegas after.
Yeah.
I was expecting, Sonja.
That's why I led with that, because that's the one thing.
Yeah. Here in Nashville, remember they had the All-Star game there about 10, 12, maybe 14 years ago. Adam Pac-Man Jones got in a really bad situation there in Las Vegas, who involved a shooting. A man was paralyzed or something like that. He ended up getting
former
suspended.
Cincinnati Bengal, Adam Pac-Man Jones, y'all.
Former Titans drafted him, I want to say in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. 2005, 6th pick overall. Really small guy, did not want him. From Atlanta. Great player. Just got in a lot of trouble, had some maturity issues. I know he's been arrested a couple times in Atlanta airport, by the way.
Yep.
Is there a big sign with Adam Jones with the big line through it in the Atlanta airport? Is he banned yet?
Not yet. I don't think. I mean, I don't know, but I know there was some back-to-back issues that I were like, you just squandering your name, sir. But to be clear, a lot of times that doesn't even matter. Sometimes these people get so big money-wise that you can't control them. For instance, Zay Flowers, who cost the Ravens their victory against the Chiefs. We would have been looking at the Ravens in the Super Bowl instead. Not only does he lose it on the field, he cuts his hand, and he, I don't know if they've detained him or not yet. He just had an arrest warrant issued for him for a domestic battery in his home this week. So he clearly is the same off the field as he is on the field.
He's emotional.
He's very, very emotional. And speaking of emotional, Travis Kelce came forward and was like, hey, I was out of line. I was just really excited. The whole thing about how he literally ran up on Andy Reid during the Super Bowl. Andy clearly didn't see it coming. And in fact, Travis had to be restrained by one of his teammates.
Yeah. Yeah. Something, and I mentioned this on my program. Well, for one thing, on the XApp, Sunday was roid rage was trending. I mentioned on my program after the AFC Championship game that there was a big spike in Travis Kelce numbers. He's 34 years old. He was hurt early this year. I think he somewhat lost a step. Okay. But he's got numbers like 3 catches, 20 yards in the Cincinnati game towards the end of the season. They have a mini bye, but they have an unofficial bye week. Very last game, they couldn't move up. They couldn't move down. I understand that. But it goes on. They have that really cold game against Miami after that. Then they go on the road against Buffalo. His numbers are way up in the 70s. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for having a good game the first game, because he's technically coming off a bye week.
Right.
But my point is he goes from 30, 40, 50 yards catching to 77, 77, give or take a few yards, to 115 yards, 11 catches against the best defense in the league in the Baltimore Ravens. And I mentioned this. Listen, I'm not accusing you of anything, but if I'm the NFL, I drug test him immediately that Monday morning. CeeDee Lamb, a young player in his prime. He had a career day, had quite a few this past season. He had a career year. He was drug tested. Jamar Gibbs, the rookie. So he's a very young player. You would think.
Jameer Gibbs. He had a great game. In the Super Bowl, though, the first half, Kelce only had 1 reception and 1 yard.
Yeah, and he admitted, hey, I was out of line after he cooled down after the game. Some players defended that, a lot of your ESPN guys. But Warren Sapp said, and I've heard him on the Jason. He's like, no, you can't do that, man. You cannot touch a coach.
No,
You know, he's like, I've dog cussed my coaches before, but you really should not. And I think the league, I don't know what they'll do about the Players Association, but the league should fine him for that.
They definitely should. I mean, Andy Reid is a respected, seasoned coach. He's 71, almost 72 years old.
Yeah, he almost fell down too. Yeah,
right. I was on the show last night, and I told Mike Eckel from the Man Cave. I said I don't think he would have tried that with Dan Campbell. I think
Dan's a lot younger, big old guy.
They would have probably both been ejected because I could see Dan either choke slamming him or some type of way because Dan is very aggressive. And just to talk about the fine aspect of it, Trae Young just last night got a $92,000 fine with the game against Charlotte, the Hornets, and their loss to the Hornets. They got beat down like 120 something to 90 something. And so they said he made an offensive gesture to the referees down there. So 92,000, they've already handed out that punishment. So I'm not sure what's taking the NFL so long, seeing that this game happened on Sunday and we're almost in the weekend. So I don't know, but I guess Andy was kind of more like, I understand. I know he's passionate, blah, blah, blah. I feel like, I am a Travis Kelce fan. I always liked him as a player, but I do feel like this season, he did get really caught up in the whole, he let his personal life bleed over into his professional life, not just the fact that, he was dating such a high profile celebrity, and no, he didn't ask the media to just be all in her face. But I just think some of the antics we saw on the field were just because she was in the stadium, just like, hey, let me show her, I'm Mr. Tough Guy, because I don't know if you remember or our audience remembers, but before they became an item, Travis had gone to one of her concerts, had a bracelet made, wanted to meet her backstage, and she refused to meet him. And he was on his brother's podcast, basically saying, hey, I wanted her to know, how big I am at Arrowhead too, because she's supposed to be performing somewhere out that way as well. And I wanted her to see I'm just as big. So when I think about that and I think about what's going on now, I feel like, okay, he had a platform to show her and he, over dramatized everything to make sure that, and we see her in the audience falling out from scores. And I'm like, come on, girl, the game is still going on. Like, I love you, Taylor, but
at the beginning, she's gotten better though. She was celebrating after they get like 1 yard,
I was like, someone get this girl a class. Have her come watch my podcast. Hi, sis Neldra. So Neldra, my sister, is on here. What a surprise. Hi, Neldra. And she said she fully agrees. Like, what did he even say to his coach? Who does he think he is? So
he's adding extra pressure on himself, I think. Because she's the biggest pop star in the world. He's adding that. He's like, I've got to perform, and you can't take it out on the coaching staff. We all know he's getting up there in age and on the other side of his peak,
But he said, so Robert, he said basically the lip syncer people that everybody's always slow down replaying. Said he was like, put me in the effing game. Or, something to that effect, or what the F are you doing? Like, he was mad because he wasn't out there. And so, when you think about just a showboat, like, if I'm up there and it's the Super Bowl, and that was one of the reasons why after I saw him run up on Andy, I was like, I hope they really lose. Like, I have one person that other than, that I would root for the Chiefs for, and that's Trey Dean. He's one of our church members. I know his family and everything, and he got drafted by them 2 weeks before they actually went to the actual Super Bowl. So Trey has a ring as a rookie, former Florida Gator, number 42, safety. So congrats to him. But I was going for the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey, Steve Wilkes, who they've just released, even though he was our coach, and even the backup quarterback, Sam Darnold, all have Panthers ties. And so
that's true.
I was going for them. Plus, my god brother's a huge 49ers fan, and I just felt like they deserved it. But to be honest, I wanted Dan Campbell and Baltimore to be in the Super Bowl, and I don't know what happened.
Well, to be the man, you got to beat the man, and that man is Mahomes and Andy Reid, and I tell you what, the ratings will continue the ratings were all time high. They'll continue to, when you they're starting to turn into a villain. Everybody at work was saying the same thing. And I said, are you picking the Niners with your heart? Or are you picking the Niners with your head? You know, you are under oath, folks.
Yeah. So yeah, I was probably picking, but the over.
No, I'm just kidding. They was a great team.
They just had the 49ers winning by 2.5 points. And then as the game got closer,
they were favored. Yeah.
They were like 1 point. But I do want to talk about real quick the fact that Steve Wilks was fired yet again from another organization in less than a year. They say defense wins championships. That defense stood all the way up against Patrick Mahomes, kept him isolated, stayed in that game, which is big. I've seen the 49ers defense play more solid than they have the entire season. And then he gets fired when the offense is the reason why they did not win the game. Christian McCaffrey had a huge cough up with not securing the ball. Yes. Then Ray McCloud with the fumble where it bounced off another teammates with the recovery to run it back. Like, they cost themselves that game. So to say, to come on Kyle Shanahan and to come out and say Steve Wilks doesn't fit, like, when is it he began not to fit? Because he's been fitting the entire season with them.
Yeah. And if you recall, Green Bay fired their defensive coordinator, and they played great against Dallas. They didn't play that bad against the 49ers in the playoffs, but they were getting gouged during the regular season. He probably looked at the body of work, and 17 points down early against Detroit. You look at the rushing yards they gave up to Detroit and to Green Bay. Some say, well, they were holding them down, but he didn't make the proper second half adjustments. You can there's other arguments that say, well, the defense was worn down. They were on the field too long, although the time of possession was pretty even. The 49ers really, truth be told, they had to play not a near perfect game, but they had to play a cleaner game. And that's why I picked the Kansas City Chiefs, because I said if it's even, then it's going to come down to Brock Purdy versus Mahomes. I know what Mahomes can do. For God's sake, he won the Super Bowl last year on a high ankle sprain. And I was all in that Eagles were going to win.
I just knew with that high ankle sprain. I mean, he's got heart. You have to say, they did.
He rises up for the game,
People, and hi, Renee. Thanks for joining in tonight, Renee Colt Rowland. People are comparing him and Andy Reid to Belichick and Brady. Is it too early to, at a minimum, like we see how Belichick did without Brady, but is it too early to compare Mahomes to Brady? I've talked to a couple of people about that. I know that Brady has been in much longer, or was in much longer than Mahomes is, but to be a team that's back-to-back and to win 3 out of 5, being the 7th team that has done that, that's commendable with Mahomes being, I think he's coming up on his 10th year this year. So not even double digits in the league. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think he'll be in year 7, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe year 8.
I thought he came
in year 8 because he set out his first year because Alex Smith.
Yeah, you're right. He did sit out.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's one playoff win away from tying Joe Montana. I mean, now Brady's got 35. He's got 15. Montana's got 16 wins. I think it is more than fair to make that comparison. That's what I've been saying. I can tell by the people who are starting to not like them because they're tired of looking at them.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah. Well, remember people people used to hate Duke all the time.
That's my team. That's my team.
But Christian Laettner.
Yes.
Bobby Hurley. Christian Laettner. Remember they did a 30 for 30 on it, right?
Yes.
So you start to look. I didn't care for the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, but I knew that they were tough in the early 2000s. Right. But they're the team you love to hate because if to beat them, you really got to bring it. I was a big 2004 Detroit Pistons fan. 2003.
Oh, wow. I was fans with them when they were the bad boys back in the 80s and 90s.
Well, I'm just saying because I hated the Yankees in the late 90s. I was a Braves fan.
Yeah,
they blew that up. Yeah. So it's they are compared to Belichick and Brady. They're good for the league, but you know, it is what it is. I think it's great, and because the teams prepare. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk next year because you've got Jim Harbaugh coming to the LA Chargers, so you're going to have a healthy Joe Burrow next year. You're going to have Deshaun Watson back next year. The AFC is going to be pretty tough. It's not going to be a cakewalk, you know.
Yeah, and speaking of the teams that are coming in, Belichick is still jobless.
Yeah. And you know what? How about offering him a DC job with 49ers for this year since he don't have a job? Pay him $10 million. How about that?
Would he take that?
Maybe.
Mike Vrabel is still out, you know, even though he's more OC minded. Mike Vrabel is out.
No, he's defensive. He's a defensive guy.
He is? Okay. Well, see, Mike Vrabel is out. Even though it's been said that people don't want to hire him because his presence is so commanding, like his physique is just overwhelming. I mean, he didn't look that big to me, but I guess, you know, to be in the locker room.
I thought that was so funny, wasn't it?
Yeah. I saw that. I was like, this dude looks like Fred Flintstone. I can't believe you're even saying you're intimidated by him. He's a cartoon character, for God's sake.
Yeah, apparently there's people are intimidated by him. I played. Did you ever watch that movie, Christmas Vacation with Randy?
The Lampoons?
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Remember when the boss's wife is calling the police and she's describing Randy Quaid, who just kidnapped Clark's boss.
Yes.
And he said, she's like, this big beastly man, boldly man, just kidnapped my husband. And I'm thinking, is that Mike Vrabel she's trying to describe?
Right. I mean, so you have to think about it. You know, now there's a defensive coordinator position empty there. And speaking of defensive coordinators, and I know you mentioned being a slight Dallas fan, at least back in the day.
Well, years ago. I'm all Tennessee. Well, I'm really just a fan of my takes now, but
I wish more people that lived in certain states would support their home team. I have like a gang of family members that are still Steelers and Cowboys, and they do not even root for the Panthers. Like some of them do, but I have some
of my friends are still
including
Cowboys
my sister,
and whatever. Yeah,
she will not root for the Panthers. She talks about them really bad and calls them out of their names. Other names for Panthers and stuff like that. But it's all in fun. But all right, Robert. So it's been really great having you on. I know you got other obligations tonight.
Yeah, I got to do a show here in 20 minutes, and I got one little prep thing to finish up on. So, thanks for having me on, son.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me, and please come back anytime you have an open invitation, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Butler, he's on SportsSkope. Check him out on YouTube. It's just like the caption says across the bottom. You have a good night, Robert. I'll see you next time.
You too. Have a good show.
All right. You too. Bye-bye. All right, y'all. So that was Robert Butler from SportsSkope. Always a good time having him on here. But anyway, we're gonna switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about Steve Wilks. So Steve Wilks, for the third time now, is jobless. I wonder, and please put in the chat your thoughts on just what to think. Like Steve Wilks got the 49ers to the Super Bowl. I mentioned it earlier. They said defense wins championships. But Kyle Shanahan comes out and is like, Steve Wilks doesn't fit. I mean, something clearly else is going on beyond that for them to even mention something like he doesn't fit. Out of 30 other teams in the league that did not make the Super Bowl, Steve Wilks doesn't fit. I know a lot of Panthers fans, we are, definitely rooting for Steve Wilks. We're rooting for Christian McCaffrey. We're rooting for even Sam Darnold. Panthers fans did not want Steve Wilks to leave. In fact, we thought he should have been the head coach when he was, in our organization as an interim. But that did not happen. And so now we are basically back to where we are. We got Tampa Bay folks coming in there. We're going to be, eager to see how they do, seeing that we're now starting from scratch and we are in a rebuild mode once again. So tell me your thoughts. What do you guys think? Now we got the draft coming up in a little while. We still have some defensive coaches out there that may be going wherever. We have some people out there saying things like, okay, look, Mike McCarthy is a lame duck with the Dallas Cowboys. They've already said, well, Jerry Jones has already said they're not going to extend him. I don't think that Mike McCarthy is going to even be able to remain the entire season unless they look like they always do, the 12-5, and then he just doesn't renew him. But the prediction is he may lose a few, and then Jerry Jones just brings Mike McCarthy in. But even stranger was the fact that the Cowboys, they interviewed Rex Ryan. You guys remember him from the Jets. Well, he's an analyst on ESPN now. And basically, they interviewed him for defensive coordinator position. He didn't get it. They hired Mike Zimmer, former head coach of the Minnesota Vikings up until 2021. Mike Zimmer actually finished with that franchise as one of the third winningest coaches in Vikings history. So he's been without a job for a couple of seasons. Rex Ryan did not get the position, shockingly, even though he's made no secret about it, that he definitely was trying to get back in the NFL. So I'm wondering now, with the 49ers having this defensive coordinator position opening, will they consider Rex Ryan or just what to think? Like, it's just shocking. It's going to be a lot of rebuilds in the offseason. Looks like my Panthers hopefully will get some folks in the free agency because we have no drafts. Like I say that every show, we have no drafts. Chicago has our number 1 draft pick, and the rumor mill is they may actually use it on another quarterback. I cannot imagine them doing that because Justin Fields just got to the point where he says he's actually okay being there, and it looks like he's actually playing better. If they get another quarterback, if they bring in a draft, they're clearly going to be trading Justin Fields. Atlanta needs a quarterback. Minnesota is now saying they're probably going to keep Kirk Cousins, but the veteran quarterback who's put up big numbers is high on the market right now in the free agency. And it's going to be interesting to see because Atlanta will not continue to make Desmond Ridder their number 1 star and definitely not Taylor Heineke. The Panthers have Bryce Young, of course, and even in New Orleans, where they have Derek Carr, a lot of Saints fans are divided on whether or not they're sold on him. Jameis Winston, how long is he going to continue to remain with that franchise before they finally let him go? Who knows? Joe Burrow will be coming back to Cincinnati. Will they go like they did a couple seasons ago all the way? Him, Jamar Chase, dynamic duo up there in Cincy getting it done. Deshaun Watson will be coming back next season as well. What do they do with Joe Flacco? Joe was signed, I believe, to a 1-year contract. And the rumor mill is, you guys probably saw last night, I had Mike Elko on from the Man Cave show, that they're probably going to get rid of Flacco because Deshaun is their guy. But to be honest, a lot of people were not feeling Deshaun Watson because of all of his off-field issues that have been addressed all over the media and for the whole world to basically see on display. But for that reason, some teammates were actually wanting Flacco to stay. And Flacco did look like the solid contender until he didn't. He showed us parts of Joe Flacco, as they said. But whatever the case will be up in Cleveland, it's going to be a dog's day. And we know that they're going to be definitely making the cut. Now, down in Tampa, lest I digress about the NFC South, Baker Mayfield is expected to come back to Tampa. And Mike Evans is still up in the air. Now, Baker has expressed that he only wants to play with Mike Evans. And seeing that they've lost both their offensive coordinator and the coach to the Panthers, it's going to be interesting to see just what happens down in Tampa Bay with Todd Bowles. Jim Harbaugh is now a part of the NFL. And Justin Herbert, they got the same initials, y'all. They are expecting that team to make an explosive debut next season. Now, the other rumor mill was, and I don't know if this is going to happen or not, J.J. McCarthy, who played with Michigan, is now in the draft. He's expected to go, I think, number 10. The word is Harbaugh may try to get him as a backup to Herbert because he's used to the coaching over in Michigan when Harbaugh was there, and Jim likes him. Jim, who was a Charger himself, is now going to be full circle back with LA Chargers. They had a few names back in the day, but now they're the Los Angeles Chargers. The Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith, everything is just up in the air right now. I don't know if you guys are aware, but it was expressed that the owner of the franchise for the Seahawks actually wanted that franchise sold by 2025 in the event of his passing. We are in 2024. They said they let Pete Carroll go not because of performance issues, but because of other reasons that they did not name. I'm wondering if they're keeping Pete Carroll on as an analyst just because they're expecting to close out this franchise. They definitely got to get some stuff going with Drew Lock. I don't think they're going to keep him. He stood in the gap as long as he could for Geno Smith, but we're just not sure. And let's move it to Tennessee Titans. Will Levis, who was drafted so low that he had gone home and actually they had to call him on the phone to let him know he was drafted, y'all. They actually brought him in. He looked good and then threw 3 bombs in a row. Derrick Henry wasn't getting the receptions he needed with Will Levis. So what's going to go down with their quarterback? Will Levis is not it. We're expecting Tannehill to come back and be where he needs to be when the season restarts. But it's just a quarterback carousel to me that continues to rotate even into the new season coming up. What are your thoughts? It's a lot going on, and we are prepared now to go full force into the NBA. Got the All-Star game coming up this weekend. Doc Rivers is actually coaching the East, y'all. Can you believe it? Doc Rivers, who's like 1-6, I don't know, since taking over this position, it's just a lot. So I feel like the NBA All-Star game will be interesting. Let me know if you guys plan on watching it. There was a lot of players that actually almost got snubbed. Trae Young was one of them. He's coming in for Joel Embiid, who's out for at least another 65 games. This is going to be occurring in Indiana this weekend on Sunday, February 18th. And it's a lot of news going on with that. Now, the All-Star players, from years past are just going to be like a fragment of everything that we've already seen. This game is going to come on at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time. I don't know, y'all. I'm going to be honest. I'm just not super, super excited about this particular thing. But you got Bam Adebayo from Miami. You got Paolo Banchero from the Orlando Magic. Jaylen Brown, of course, from the Celtics. We know how he gets down, pretty good. The Celtics are looking really, really good. But the Eastern Conference starters, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Milwaukee Bucks. Joel Embiid, he's out. So you got, Trae Young coming in for him. Jason Tatum, as always, from the Celtics. Tyrese Halliburton from the Pacers. And then you got Damian Lillard. Good old Damian Lillard from the Milwaukee Bucks from the East Conference starters. And then you got the West Conference starters, which are going to be good old LeBron James. Are we surprised? Kevin Durant. And, LeBron's with the Lakers. KD's with the Suns. You got Nikola Jokic from the Nuggets. And then Luka Doncic from the Dallas Mavericks, as well as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the OKC. Now, this game is probably going to be pretty interesting. The fans vote 50% of, who the All-Stars are. If you're interested in knowing who All-Stars, how they're determined, they're selected 50% by the fans, 25% by NBA players, other players in the league, and then 25% from the media. So the 25% from the media as well as the NBA players makes up the other half that the fans do not. And after all the votes are tallied, you have players that are ranked in each conference by their position, guard and front court, within each of the 3 voting groups. And each of the players' scores are calculated by averaging their weighted rank from the fan votes, the player votes, and the media votes. And then you get 2 guards, 3 front court players with the best score in each conference are all named the NBA All-Star Game starters. So let me know if you all are going to be watching that. Then you have the reserve team. And I mentioned a couple of those names earlier. But the commissioner, Adam Silver, selects the replacement for each player that's unable to participate. I mentioned that early on with Trae Young. Then they choose a player from each of the same exact conference of that player who's being replaced. So Bam Adebayo from Miami is on the reserves. Paolo Banchero, Orlando Magic, and Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics are all reserve players, as is Jalen Brunson. I'm shocked he didn't make, the All-Star. From the New York Knicks, Tyrese Maxey from the 76ers, Donovan Mitchell from the Cavs, and Julius Randle is also going to be on the reserve for the New York Knicks. Now, the West Conference reserves, you got Devin Booker from the Suns, Steph Curry from the Warriors. I mean, he's normally up there, but Steph has been slipping, so now he's a reserve. Anthony Davis from the Lakers, Anthony Edwards from the Timberwolves, Paul George, the Clippers, as well as Kawhi Leonard from the Clippers, Leonard from the Clippers, and then you have Karl Anthony Towns from the Timberwolves. Now, those are all the reserves. Now, it's super interesting to know, that any given time, as soon as your rank starts going down, you probably are not going to be considered an all-star. But 8 o'clock Sunday, we'll see the East versus the West. Now, it looks like the Bucks and Gallinari are finalizing their deal. The veteran forward does plan to sign with Milwaukee to reunite with Doc Rivers, who we just mentioned a little while ago. So that's going to be interesting. Trae Young last night was fined $92,000 in the Hawks-Hornets game, where the Hawks lost like 120-something to 90-something, and he made an obscene gesture to the refs. So $92,000, already passed that little punishment on to Trae. And the Clippers Tucker, he has a $75,000 fine right now, and it's assessed to him after he made comments that were derogatory on being traded. So the NBA is handing out fines left and right. I wish I could just get a percentage of that fine, in my pocket. Now, during the big game, you're going to be able to see a lot of players near and far from, old and new. I try not to use the word old, but, former and latter. And it's going to be a lot of stars in the house in Indiana. I'm sure everybody's probably bulking up to get down there now so that they can, definitely be out there and comfortable and everything. I'm pretty interested to see how Indy actually hires this. I haven't really paid too much attention to them, except for, when the Pacers are playing here and there. But looks like the all-time three-point leader, Curry, and two-time Kia MVP becomes the only player to accomplish that feat. You got Drew Eubanks and the Pistons steward in a pregame altercation. Now, that made news last night, that right before the game between the Suns and the Pistons, looks like Drew Eubanks had a run-in. Now, he's, got this ankle issue. Now he's supposed to be playing. But right before they, took the court for that game, they had a physical altercation between them. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to double check. I think there was some type of citation issued because of that altercation. Yes, in fact, Stewart was arrested. This is Isaiah Stewart from the Pistons for assault because he punched Drew Eubanks at the arena hours before the teams played. The police did issue a citation, and he has since been released. And what's shocking to me, he already has a sprained left ankle. So he's out there and you're fighting. And, Eubanks on the other side was like, well, hey, I got in an argument with him. We were chest to chest. The next thing I know, Stewart is throwing a punch. Security intervened, and Eubanks did say he was fine to go ahead and play the game, even though the police are saying he sustained a minor injury. Now, according to the NBA, they made a statement and said the attack on Drew Eubanks was unprovoked, and acts of violence such as this are unacceptable. This is the Suns making this statement. We unequivocally support Drew and will continue to work with local law enforcement and the NBA. Now, the Pistons are aware of the incident, but are not saying too much. They're just saying they're in a process of gathering information about what happened, what provoked it, and are responding to the NBA and local authorities. Now, Pistons coach Monty Williams, who was fired by the Pistons, fired by Phoenix last season, said he thought that the son should not have even said anything. Like they should have just stayed calm, and stayed out of it. He was like, only thing is the NBA should be doing their own investigation. He feels like teams, and players should not be getting involved. Now, you may remember this same steward, that sucker punched Eubanks, was also involved in an on-court altercation with LeBron James in 2021. And during that altercation, right after that, they both received suspensions, where Stewart, being the aggressor, received a 2-game suspension and LeBron James only received 1 game. So he is a hothead. I don't know what it is with the NBA in this day and era. We see Draymond going crazier than ever, seriously, like to attack your own your own teammate. And then you see now that this just seems to be the conduct. I mean, I know humans are humans, we are people. But when you're in the limelight like that, you really shouldn't be in a position that you're making such a negative impact. After all, at least when I was growing up, sports figures were looked at as idolized. They were looked at as the example. They were looked at as someone you aspire to be like. And as parents now, we definitely want our children to have all the positive examples that they can have. Perhaps it just goes back to home training. And in fact, we should not look at others who are in the professional league, no matter what, as your example, because we're all fallible. We are all fallible. And so that's just how it is, guys. You all, it's been a great night. I have enjoyed all the comments. Thank you so much to Robert Butler for coming on my show tonight, for all the commentary. We will continue our thoughts and prayers and well wishes to the family of Lisa Lopez Gavin, who was a DJ that was killed in Kansas City. We will also be praying for those children who are being treated, and for all those people who emotionally suffered from such a melee that occurred in Kansas City. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., I will be sitting down with Fidel, who is the founder of Chiefs or Die, the tribal organization that he started to support the Kansas City Chiefs. And to my understanding, he was present. And so we will be sitting down tomorrow at 7 p.m. right here on this same platform to speak with him about that, as well as other sports news. And I appreciate all of you tonight. I hope you be well. And I will see you at another time. Good night.
This is Northeast Streaming Sports.